I keep picking up this release of dogmatic energy, I guess. So like um people subconsciously or consciously gaining the ability to no longer feel like there is a degree of separation between one group of individuals and another due to some like superficial or like, even if it is something deeply rooted like belief systems and stuff like that, there's just like this sense of it being like the pressure being released, like the tension, to where like, you know, it's kind of like silly. I'm seeing like, a herd of horses or whatever, and they could all have different colors of and different patterns or whatever, and they could even be slightly different breeds of horses, right? But they all kind of just like are running in the same pack together or whatever. So that's kind of the energy it's giving, is that you don't feel like you need to change necessarily. um but there will be changes that naturally happen as there is like as you like are grasping less tightly onto any sort of extreme views. And that could look like, it doesn't have to be political, because I really don't like that energy is not, I don't like picking up on it as an intuitive or whatever. But like it could have something to do with that too, just like you know veering towards like being more moderate. But like um it's giving, your family has always said, oh, you need to end up marrying someone who was like this and this, you know and maybe you always felt that way and you always sort of like acted that way, and now there's this sense of like not necessarily, the only thing that is holding you towards that is some like intangible energy that doesn't really exist. Like, what the worst thing they could do is like threaten to disown you. But like, I feel like you'll be supported by the universe by following your heart anyway, so you won't even really need their money in the first place. You know what I mean? It's something like that. And no one's perfect, right? But it's just giving that things that you used to be very judgmental about or very unwavering about, you just kind of like are more chill about. I guess that's the overall energy, and it is giving mass energy. But it could just, in particular for this collective as well, will be a part of that shift. It's just like giving that like a lot of things that, used to make you really triggered, or that you felt like you needed to debate people about, or you felt like you needed to like, I'm standing on my laurels about this, I'm not a flip-flopper, blah blah blah. It's like you are kind of like entering the sense of like prioritizing things, to where like that stuff doesn't really matter, and you're understanding that that's not that, it like being so gung-ho or like super, like there are certain things that you definitely should stand for, right? But it's giving that there are other, you're like realizing certain things don't need to consume so much of your energy, and like there are better places to, expend that energy. It's giving that like maybe you were somebody who used to like spend hours and hours and hours doing research on certain topics just to like bolster your position when you tried to argue with people about stuff. And now you're like, you know what, I could use that time for, I don't know, learning a new language, you know and so you do that, and then it takes you down a whole different path and opens a whole different world for you. You could have even been someone who like was so, and I'm not judging you, right? But like you could have been someone who was like so like, I don't know, again, like I don't know, I just want to use that word, like dogmatic about something or whatever, to where you were like, I'm only learning the language that I know, because why would I learn somebody else's language? My language is the best, and like that's stupid and it doesn't matter, blah blah blah. But it's giving like this opening up of like, especially people who are more closed-minded about it. And if you've always been open-minded about it, it's giving that you're like, your energy is returning to you, and you're like just seeming more happy, I guess, and like your life, like the energy surrounding your life is more serene, right? So there's less tension, and you feel like you have the energy and mental space to actually pursue certain things. Because it could be some, like you could be someone that's been like, you were raised, I don't know, deep south in a small town, so it wasn't really encouraged to be worldly or whatever, like culture. But now it's like you could finally sort of, even because it could be a matter of bravery if you're really worried about what other people will say or think. But it's like the sense of, finally saying, I'm open to, and I have the time to explore these different things, and like explore different ways of life, even if, I'm not changing my whole life to do those things. But you can take, it's like, oh, your mind is opening up to where you acknowledge that, I don't know, every different culture, every different, like, I don't know, what do you call them? I don't know, just like subgroup of humanity, and even like amongst like the animal kingdom or the rest of the animal kingdom, right? You're gaining this understanding that there's like something to gain from every aspect of like the world's culture, and you don't need to pigeonhole yourself only into one specific like niche or anything like that. You may even recognize that you were doing yourself a disservice by like intentionally sort of like mentally rejecting certain things that could honestly benefit you. It's giving like for example, like if you were raised kind of like, I don't know, like fear like the like certain cultures or whatever, or a specific culture, and then you realize that that culture has a certain like type of medicine or like holistic practices or whatever that end up being the solution for some sort of ailment that you have, right? So like, I don't know, like traditional Chinese medicine or something like that, or even people who are like, oh, meditating is not for me, or that's like heathen stuff, you know what I mean? It's something about not just you, but in a wider sense, you could even see that in people who you perceive to be very stuck in their ways, like older people in your families. And you know I don't know, like your grandma even, starting to show more interest in like getting to know the truth of the world versus what is kind of like projected upon us in order to like create the illusion of division or whatever. But I guess this whole message is just sort of pointing towards like a lean or a redirection towards more openness in regards to a lot of things. And it doesn't have to be something as like broad as, opening yourself up to other worldviews or whatever. It could just literally be like, because I would bring up this example because I know a lot of people like this who are raised in families who are like STEM families, like, um, painting or, writing poetry, it was perceived as like a waste of time. I even knew some people who were literally discouraged from dating individuals who weren't in a STEM based field. You have to be like an engineer or whatever, a doctor. Um, but it's getting that like an open mindedness in order to explore things that may not be necessarily like praised by your family, or not just doing things for the sake of image, like maybe in your community everybody is like, oh, a Tesla is like the sign of luxury or whatever, or like a Lexus is what everybody drives to show that you are like luxurious or something, or like that you made it or whatever, or like, oh, if you get a bi-level house, then that means you made it, and that's like a sign of success in your area or whatever. And it's giving that like breaking out of that mindset to just be like, well, what do I actually like, you know what I mean? And no longer caring so much about and also in an inverse of that, if you're somebody who's like, oh, like for example, if there are certain things that are perceived to be like trends or whatever, and you could be, again, I'm not judging you, we've all been there, like, oh, I'm going to be contrarian about this because people like this thing too much, like, oh, I can't do that even if I do kind of like it secretly because too many people like that thing. Like there's a release of that too. And not really worrying about if something is too basic, like you're allowing yourself to just do whatever feels good to you, again, as long as you're not harming yourself or other people. It just like really doesn't matter. You're just allowing yourself to explore things that you actually like and that actually make you happy and that actually interest you without worrying too much about like anything else. You're just like prioritizing that above everything else. But yeah, I would say that like lean into that energy, be easy with yourself, and you don't need to, especially if you're getting to the point where you're like angry with yourself for holding your mind back for so long. Don't worry about that. Try to get into this state of mind where like the only thing that exists is this present moment. Like the past doesn't exist and the future technically doesn't exist either. So just like don't disparage yourself for the mistakes of the past, as long as you are like making a conscious effort in the moment to evolve and progress and like do better in your own mind, I guess.